This episode is brought to you by RAYCON. You never know where life is going to take you, but RAYCON's everyday earbuds offer premium audio that goes wherever you go. And their latest model is better than ever with a 32-hour battery life, active noise cancellation, and multi-point connectivity to pair with 2 devices at once. RAYCONs bring you top-tier audio quality at just half the price of other premium brands. And they even offer a 30-day happiness guarantee. No questions asked. Get 15% off RAYCON's everyday earbuds at buyraycon.com/command.
Greetings, humans. You have entered the Command Zone, your destination for all aspects of Elder Dragon Highlander. Enjoy your stay.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Command Zone podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Weeks.
I'm Jimmy Wong, your commander.
And today we are building the most powerful token commanders of all time. We're going to be going through the ones that we think are the absolute best if you're a token fan and exactly how we'd build them if we were building them. And there's even full deck lists for each of the decks that we will go through today.
Decks by Rachel Weeks for your consumption?
Absolutely, with my stamp on them.
Wow, Christmas came early.
Let's get into it. We're going to start with the most popular token commander of all time.
Yeah, on EDH, it is, if you can guess it, Chatterfang. Squirrel.
Chatterfang.
General. I didn't even know squirrels had generals. It's kind of like Redwall. They have a whole hierarchy of, there's a king, there's a general.
Oh, yeah. Squirrels are very hierarchical.
Yeah. In the trees, there's ones above the other ones. Okay, 2 in the green for a 3/3 legendary creature, Squirrel Warrior with Forest Walk. Can't be blocked as long as defending player controls a forest. A lot of people forget that part. And it says if one or more tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus that many 1/1 green squirrel creature tokens are created instead. And then you can pay black to sacrifice X squirrels and give a target creature plus X minus X until end of turn. So both a pump and a removal spell. And this is very powerful because this is essentially a token doubler.
Yeah, I mean, Chatterfang is an exceptionally powerful magic card. And it does everything that you want in a token commander. It gives you a lot of material. It's an evasive commander. And, like, even you can chip in 4 commander damage with Chatterfang. That's not often how you see it played, but you can use the pump ability at instant speed and the unblock ability to just randomly take somebody out of the game.
Yeah.
I think that's fun.
Hit him for 5 each turn without killing Chatterfang.
Chatterfang is sort of the perfect commander for a lot of different common token builds. It's a great aristocrats commander. It's a great sort of swarm token commander. It's even a good typal commander if you're into squirrels.
If you love squirrels. And the nice part about Chatterfang's design that we don't see on more modern cards is a lot more modern cards would say if you make 1 or more tokens, you make that many plus just 1, like 1/1 squirrel or frog token or whatever. But for Chatterfang, he makes that many. So if you make 5 tokens, you get 5 1/1 green squirrels as well.
Yeah, Chatterfang can really fuel a huge squirrel army. In this case, I actually built Chatterfang as an aristocrats strategy. I think that's Chatterfang at its most powerful. It's also Chatterfang at its sort of most popular. So I built around like sacrifice stuff, but also squirrels as a creature type have a lot of sacrifice synergy built in. So I have a fair amount of squirrel typal stuff going on as well, in addition to some of their like food synergy that came from Bloomburrow.
And it makes it extra cute.
It makes it extra cute. So let's get into the strategy of this deck, how I would recommend that you play Chatterfang. And the first thing is, play Chatterfang.
Yeah, it's turn 3 commander at the latest, but maybe sometimes turn 2 if you're really ramping.
Yeah, I mean, there's Soul Ring, there's Arbor Elf, there's a lot of ways to just get this on the board. Other than that, like playing Chatterfang on turn 3 is going to be just fine because there's plenty of setup pieces on turn 2.
Yeah, so let's talk about some of the token makers. One of the ones from Bloomburrow is Vine Reap Mentor. This is a really cute black-green 3/2. When it enters or dies, you create a food token. So it's very open to be sacrificed by Chatterfang because you're going to get a food token plus a 1/1. So this is instant board state on the card. Love that. This next one's also really good.
Yeah, this is going to go in a couple of the token decks that we're talking about today. It's Gala Greeters, 1 and a green for a 1/1 elf druid. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. Put a counter on Gala Greeters, create a tapped treasure token, or you gain 2 life. Of course, if you make that tapped treasure token, you're also making a tapped squirrel to go along with it. So
they get 2 of the triggers right then there with Gala Greeters.
Absolutely. So Gala Greeters is excellent Baylen in this deck is going to make sure that once you start making tokens, you're making a ton of them.
Yeah, and then you're probably going to run a decent number of cards like Chatter of the Squirrel, which is the green sorcery for 1, and you create a 1/1 green squirrel token, and then you can flash it back for 1 in the green. So great to be in the graveyard. Just go, go, go.
It's hard to beat that rate, right? 1 green mana to make 2 squirrels plus another 2 to make 2 more. It's 3 mana to make 4 bodies. An aristocrat deck is very powerful, not to mention the squirrel strategies on top of it.
Yeah.
Then from there, once you have a board of squirrel tokens, you use the squirrels to sort of control the board, pick off value creatures that you don't want your opponents to have, and just to fuel your value engines in general. You've got a few sack outlets. You've got a few different ways to sort of make sure that your squirrels are the most powerful thing going on.
Yeah, so sack outlets are always an interesting spot in token decks. You don't want to put too many, but the ones that you do put in there should be really high impact.
You also don't need too many because your commander is a sack outlet itself. So I only played the sack outlets that are the most powerful for this deck.
And I'm assuming that the other token decks we talk about today, if the commander doesn't have the sacrifice ability on them, you're probably putting in some more sack outlets.
Yeah.
So Plum the Forbidden is a really, really powerful one. I always look at decks and want to put this card in there, but unless I'm a dedicated token strategy, it doesn't really work out. But this card is amazing. It's 1 in black for an instant. As an additional cost to cast a spell, you may sacrifice 1 or more creatures. When you do, copy the spell for each creature you sacrifice this way, and then you draw a card and you lose a life. So you could be doing your whole board, drawing like 8 cards at once. Pretty sweet.
Priest of the Forgotten Gods is another one that I was talking about. This isn't a repeatable sack outlet, but you can tap it to sacrifice 2 creatures, and any number of target players each lose 2 life and sacrifice a creature. You add black, and draw a card.
Yeah.
You turn 2 bodies into both mana and a card, and you make everybody sack a creature.
Yeah.
It is very hard to beat that value. This is a must-answer threat in any sort of black token strategy.
Yeah, and then you have Braid's Arisen Nightmare, which allows you to sack a bunch of different things, artifact, creature, enchantment land, or planeswalker. But you're always going to have something to get rid of, maybe even some food tokens with or treasure tokens with the other cards we mentioned. Or with some of our aristocrats parts, you can get some other cool things to sack.
Yeah, so this deck is definitely focused on sacrificing all of the squirrels that you are making. So I wanted to mention that I actually avoided a lot of the effects that benefit from having a lot of squirrels on the board or just having a lot of creatures on the board. Because I find them a very awkward combination. When you're focusing on sacrificing your stuff and you draw a card that says for every squirrel you have, you make a this. Because now, like, okay, if you play your Plum the Forbidden, you sacrifice 5 squirrels to draw 5 cards, and then you drew your thing that benefits from having a lot of squirrels. And you're like, I just sacrificed all my squirrels.
Bye-bye.
So it's a bit of a tug and pull in token decks, specifically decks like Chatterfang, that can go very wide, but also are great aristocrat commanders. So I wanted to mention that if you're building a go wide deck, definitely like run things like Toski, run things that say like for the amount of creatures that hit, you can draw that many cards. That's great in a go wide strategy. But if you're building around the aristocrat side and you're playing a lot of sack outlets, you're focusing on the control part of Chatterfang, then you want fewer things that benefit from having a lot of things on the board.
Yeah.
You probably will at certain times, but they can just make your sequencing a little strange.
Well, yeah, it's 2 very different directions. You're going wide and trying to kill them, or you're using your creatures constantly for this incremental value over the game.
Yeah.
So
if you want to focus on the swarm strategy, I totally get it. You can build this deck in the opposite way.
That's the Oran Frostfang version.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
one of the other commanders, a couple of the commanders we're talking about today is definitely more about that.
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the drain effects that we have in there.
Yeah, this is the late game of Chatterfang. We've set up, we've got a wide board, we've sacrificed a lot of stuff. How are we actually ending the game?
Yeah, these are pretty obvious. They're quite common, and specifically we do like about tokens dying, but in this case, the first one we're talking about is actually not. It's Marionette Apprentice. It's such a good rate for 1 in the black to make a 1/2 with Fabricate 1, so it can come with a 1/1 counter, or you make a servo artifact creature token. You're going to make the token.
It's the servo.
And then it says whenever another creature or artifact you control is put into a graveyard, each opponent loses 1 life. So those food tokens we were talking about earlier, the treasure tokens, once you have a few of these things out, Marionette Apprentice kind of like works across multiple levels, which is nice.
Yeah, this is great. And if you have Chatterfang on the board, you play it, you make a servo and a squirrel, so you immediately have a ton of fodder to keep churning through. Mirkwood Bats is going to go in basically any token deck that has black in it. It's very good in this one, which is trying to make a huge board and then make it all disappear as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Especially with your commander, you just pay a single black, sacrifice your entire board, and you can drain a lot
wild. Yeah, whenever you create or sacrifice a token, so it counts for each one that goes away, each opponent loses 1 life. And then Nadir's Nightblade is very similar. It cares mostly about tokens, or just about tokens. Whenever a token you control leaves the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life, and you gain 1 life. Hooray!
Finally, Chatterfang wouldn't be a Chatterfang deck if we didn't mention a couple of the cards that go infinite with this commander. I have included them in the base deck list. You do not have to, but I wanted to certainly mention them as an option. The first one is Chatterfang and Pitiless Plunderer, which says whenever another creature you control dies, create a treasure token. So you use the treasure token to sacrifice 2 squirrels. You get 2 treasure tokens, then you get 2 squirrels. So then you can keep sacrificing one of the treasure tokens, sacrifice the 2 squirrels again, get more treasures. So this way you get infinite ETBs, infinite dies, infinite treasures, infinite mana, infinite sacrifice, and you can kill the entire board.
2-card combo.
2-card combo.
Yeah.
You just need 2 squirrels on the battlefield to really pop off.
Yeah. And then Worn Soul Trader is another one, similar. 2 in the black, pay 1 life, sack another creature, create a treasure token. So as long as you have life there, right? But you have another Aristocrats effect on the board, you'll be getting that life right back. Right.
If you have a drain effect that's specifically one that gains you life, you can really combo off. I will say, if you're including these combo effects, I would either add more tutors or add more things to really build around this plan if you want it to be more high power. There's lots of great ways to find these in green and black. And if you want it to be more low power, you can pull out both of those no problem and put in any number of treasure cards that will go just fine.
Yeah, so like every deck that we're going to talk about today, the deck list is on ARCHIDEKT. Make sure you click on the link in the description if you're looking to build a Chatterfang deck. And once you decide to do so, maybe you're going to also head over to cardkingdom.com/command where you're going to find the cards. You can even copy paste Rachel's entire deck. There's nothing wrong with that. And just go paste, add to cart, buy it, and boom. Cardkingdom.com/command is so convenient because it delivers the entire package to your doorstep in one single go. And so you'll get the entire deck. Maybe you just add in your basic lands at that point, slot up, get ready to go, and boom, you are playing that Chatterfang deck immediately. It's almost like you bought a precon, but it's a Rachel Weeks precon.
It's going to be a good one, too. I tried to keep all of these around $200, and that's using Card Kingdom prices so that you could buy it and not feel like you've really, really burnt the bank. $200 is a lot of money, but
not when it comes to Final Fantasy precons.
But I did want it to be just like a very functional deck.
Totally. And I think $200 is right in the right range for like a good functional deck that you can bring to pretty much anywhere and play and have a good shot, especially with this one with the infinite combos and stuff too.
Chatterfang's correct.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, people are paying $300 to $400 for a standard deck right now, and that's 60 cards. So a 100-card deck sounds pretty good. Yeah. So yeah, cardkingdom.com/command to do that so quickly, so conveniently, and support the show while you're there.
All right. Once those cards are in your hand, you're going to need to protect them. We're building decks here. Go to ultapro.com/command to get the sleeves, the deck boxes, the binders you need to be a well-accessorized and well-organized Magic player. There's a ton of stuff on their website right now. If you're into the Final Fantasy stuff, hopefully you got access to some of the Ultra Pro product because it looks amazing and it is selling out fast. Make sure that you sign up for the newsletter. Make sure that you're paying attention to the Ultra Pro site because you can get some really high quality accessories on a pretty good price.
Yeah.
And you can support the show while shopping there if you go to ultrapro.com/command.
And the last way to support the show is directly patreon.com/command-zone. We love our patrons. They are the heart of this show because they allow us to make shows like Extra Turns and Game Nights. Without their direct support, and now soon, hopefully, yours, none of this would be possible, honestly. The lights would not be on around here. And we also get to release episodes of Extra Turns and Game Nights to them a day early, ad-free, even though the ads are the best part, as we all know. Sometimes you just want that pure, unfiltered experience. So patreon.com/command-zone. We also shout out one lucky patron every single week. And this week's episode is dedicated to Jonathan Steyer.
Jonathan, you rock.
You rock. And maybe you'll token.
All right,
next up, let's talk about another popular token commander. This one is, when it hits the board, usually the game's over.
Usually. So this next one's a little interesting. There's 2 different Naya commanders that really could check the box here, and I didn't want 2 of the commanders that we talk about to be Naya. This one is sort of built, is more specifically built around Jetmir, Nexus of Revels, which is a huge Anthem commander that can turn a big board into a win on the spot. Or you could build it around Baylen the Haymaker, which is a little rabbit warrior that uses a wide board to get a lot of value, to draw cards, to make mana, to buff the rabbit themselves. Both of those are sort of live in the same space. Their deck list looks very similar because you're trying to make a huge board, play your commander, benefit. So I didn't want to give you guys two deck lists that looked almost identical. So instead, I gave you one that sort of fits both commanders.
All right. That makes sense. All right, let's talk about Jetmir. Jetmir is 1 red, green, and the white for a 5/4 cat demon. It's got 3 abilities on it, and it scales up with the more creatures that you have. So the first one says, creatures you control get +1/+0 and have vigilance as long as you control 3 or more creatures, including Jetmir. And the next step up is creatures you control also get +1/+0 and have trample as long as you control 6 or more creatures. And the final step is creatures you control also get +1/+0 and have double strike as long as you control 9 or more creatures. So it's +1/0, +2/0, or +3/0, and the abilities are vigilance into trample into double strike. You can understand why this wins on the spot.
It is worth noting that Jetmir is a static anthem effect. So if you go to combat and Jetmir is removed in combat, all of that buff goes away and your tokens become small again.
Yeah.
But if you're build around Jetmir like this deck does, you have a lot of protection. You've got a lot of board protection because your win is very telegraphed. But having access to Jetmir where your board can be lethal out of nowhere is exceptionally powerful.
Kind of like Craterhoof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Baylen is red, green, and a white for a 4/3 rabbit warrior. It says tap 2 untapped tokens you control, add 1 mana of any color, tap 3 untapped tokens you control, draw a card, or tap 4 untapped tokens you control. Put 3 +1/+1 counters on Baylen. It gains trample until end of turn.
Yeah, so very similar.
Very powerful. This is more of a value-based commander that is using a wide board to sort of get to the late game. And then you have a Haymaker like Jetmir or some of the other ones in the deck to, well,
Baylen is a Haymaker.
Baylen's the Haymaker, but you do need a separate Haymaker probably to close out the game here. But like I said, I think these are comparable in power level in terms of token commanders. So we're going to dive into the 99. Remember, we're building around Jetmir, but there are some treats in the deck for Baylen as well.
Yeah, and you can also tell, like Baylen, you might be able to put in some more stuff that cares about how many cards you draw each turn because Baylen has that ability. Or you might want to go a little bit more focused on Baylen being your unblockable commander. So those are sort of like the angles you can obviously see would make the difference here. But let's talk about the token strategy specifically.
Whichever commander you're building around, this is a classic go wide token deck that uses big token spells to make a ton of bodies and anthem effects to make them huge and close out the game. Overwhelm your opponents with sort of a wide and tall deck. So this is a lot more traditional than Chatterfang in terms of what we predict a token deck to look like. And the strategy is going to be completely different. Where Chatterfang, you wanted your commander down early so you can make tokens. Both of your commanders are Haymakers, so they come down after you've produced a big board of tokens, and they will benefit from them.
And we're also playing with the colors red and white. So there's some fun. There's more ramp in this list. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, so the way that I built this is I wanted a lot of X spells that made a ton of tokens in one go. Yeah. Because Jetmir is telegraphed and is pretty scary, I didn't want to spend a ton of spells to get a big board and then cast Jetmir and have it all board wiped.
You want it out of nowhere, here we go.
So I wanted to make sure that the early game was spent ramping so you could cast one big spell, have a ton of tokens on the board, so when Jetmir hits, you don't get blown out if Jetmir gets removed. There's a lot of ramp in the deck. I wanted to talk specifically about some of the synergistic ramp that sort of takes a wide board and turns it into an even wider board.
So Wand of the World, so this one's really fun. 2 and a white for an artifact. It's a mana rock in white. It enters the battlefield tapped. You can tap it for white, but you can also tap it to give your next spell you cast this turn Convoke. So whether or not that's convoking out your commander or just getting another big X spell out of the way, you can take your 10 tokens and they suddenly become 10 mana.
Yeah, and in the meantime, you can just cast this as a mana rock. It's not great that it comes in tapped. It's a little bit slower than you'd like it to be, but when you have 5-6 creatures on the board, it makes your spells so much more impactful.
Yeah, and you're really hoping to use it for that second ability anyway, so
Similar, Jaheira, Friend of the Forest, says tokens you control have tap, add green, and Cryptolith Rite, creatures you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color. Jaheira works particularly well with non-creature tokens, but here it's closer to a Cryptolith Rite ability because we really focused on creature tokens.
Yeah.
So all of those say, oh, okay, so you've got 4 or 5 tokens, well, now you have 20 because you're turning those 4 or 5 tokens into mana to make even more tokens on your next turn.
Yeah, and keep in mind both those abilities do require the tokens to not be summoning 6, so they have to be around for at least 1 turn, or you have to have a world enchantment type thing that gives everything haste. But you have that, there's a lot they can do it in these colors. Okay, let's talk about ways to instant speed or very quickly make a ton of creatures out of nowhere now that we have the ramp package in place.
Like I said, this is a very telegraphed strategy. Everybody can see Jetmir in your command zone. They know if you have a wide board, you can cast Jetmir and win the game out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So I think being able to go from having 3 or 4 tokens, which isn't all that scary, to having 10 tokens, which is very scary on somebody's end step, or after you have Jetmir hit the battlefield, cast a bunch of tokens with haste. That is where you're really going to shine. Having that element of surprise goes a long way. So instant speed and haste was a priority when I was looking for token makers.
Fortunately, there's a lot of that exists. Call the Copper Coats is an instant 2 in the white. Costs 1 in the white more to cast for each target beyond the first, and you choose any number of target opponents. Create X 1/1 human soldier creature tokens, where X is the number of creatures those opponents control. So this could be 3 opponents. You're getting 5, 10, 12 maybe creatures out of this at instant speed.
Instant speed. There's also a couple
mana
of good X spells that make hasty tokens. 4th Aerolingus being the most powerful of them. Red, white, and X to make X/2/2 red human knight creature tokens with trample and haste.
Oh my gosh.
Whenever 1 or more creatures you control deal combat damage to 1 or more players this turn, you become the Monarch. Monarch is a great card draw engine in a token strategy. You're very difficult to hit. But they're not going to get through. You can protect it, you can draw extra cards, and you can make really powerful tokens at instant speed.
I love that.
Not at instant speed, I'm sorry.
And also, toot toot, we got the Song of Totentans up in the house. X and a red for a sorcery. Create X 1/1 black rat creature tokens with this creature can't block. Who cares? Creatures you control gain haste until end of turn. So this is a sorcery speed out of nowhere, make a bunch of creatures. Because a lot of times people might go, okay, it takes 2 turns for them to set up tokens and then Jetmir. But this could be Jetmir's out and they don't have a board. Oh, now they just made 20 tokens or whatever and game over.
It depends on what token maker is in your hand when you're going to pay your Jetmir.
Yeah.
But generally, the plan is to have Jetmir after you have a plan to make a board of tokens. So you can play Jetmir and hasty spells or instant speed spell, then Jetmir.
And Baylen definitely wants a board.
Baylen is similar. You really want to be able to play Baylen and have a bunch of things to tap right away in case they have a removal spell, because that value is so powerful.
Yeah, I would say Jetmir's way more remove on site than Baylen is.
Let's talk about the late game for the deck. I think it's going to be pretty obvious when Jetmir's in your command zone. Jetmir's your late game. That is how you slam the door shut. That's how you convert a board full of tokens into a win. Really, again, you want to save him until you have a wide board and some kind of protection.
Heroic Intervention.
Heroic Intervention, even a Snakeskin Veil goes a long way because Jetmir is what you care about. Your tokens are dispensable. You need to make sure that your commander survives the combat.
Yeah, and maybe even you should hold up a couple of protection spells. I think 2 is really the safe way to go because it's so telegraphed, everyone sees it coming. If they haven't struck a deal with you, they're probably going to do something to make sure that you can't just knock them out.
Because it's so telegraphed, because it's so powerful and your opponents have to focus their efforts on it, you don't want to put all your eggs in the Jetmir basket, especially if you have Baylen in the command zone. You're going to need alternate plans to close the game. So I want to talk about a couple other options to transfer your token makers into game-ending threats.
Yeah. So this is a classic to anyone that's been around for a while, Impact Tremors. Or Perforos type effects, where 1 in a red enchantment, whenever creature you control enters, the enchantment deals 1 damage to each opponent. So we're kind of going a little aristocracy feeling here, which is like, oh yeah, I'm not going to die to combat damage, right? I have enough blockers or whatever, but all of a sudden you get pinged for 20 out of nowhere, thanks to a lot of tokens, and you now don't feel so good, Mr. Stark.
Witty Roastmaster does the same. It's a little bit more expensive mana-wise, but it's a little bit cheaper dollars-wise.
And you have to make a joke every time a creature enters.
Every time you ping somebody, you have to make a joke. There's also one more Anthem effect that I just love to put in token decks.
Sweet.
It's Mercadia's Downfall. This is 2 in a red for an instant. It says attacking creatures get +X/+O until end of turn, where X is the number of non-basic lands defending player controls.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot.
So if you're attacking 3 creatures at each player, you can count up the non-basics, and after they're like, fine, I'll take 3 or whatever.
Boom.
Give everything +4/+4 +5/+5. You can do this on opponents' attacks. You can buff their things. There's a lot of different tricks you can do when a Mercadia's Downfall is around. So I like this card because it can just turn attackers into damage, and nobody sees it coming.
Do you ever play like Master Warcraft type effects where you kind of goad stuff to give an open board just because Jetmir will close it out no matter what?
For the most part, I really prefer to know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Like to I want to.
You don't want to leave it up to.
Yeah. Well, I don't like relying on my opponents to make sure that my deck works, but I love having the option to be able to weaponize their stuff as well.
Mercadia's Downfall is great.
It's really
Turns out it was the Witty Roastmaster. They roasted Mercadia and they were like, I can't take it anymore.
All right, so that's the late game. You're just turning a wide board into damage. Like we said, traditional token deck. But I did want to talk about a couple of things that you could throw in the deck if you're building Baylen. Specifically, stuff that wouldn't go very well with Jetmir.
Yeah.
And for me, that was untappers.
Yeah, and now if you're obviously going the full convoking route and all that stuff, maybe you have space for 1 or 2 of these, but you probably don't unless you're running Baylen because the untap is so good.
Right.
So Drum Bellower is 2 and a white, flying, untap all creatures you control during each other player's untap step. This is probably one of the best cards in the Baylen deck because you get 4 untaps or 3 untaps.
Yeah, Drum Bellower is going to be nasty in any Baylen deck. Most of the untappers are only going to do it on your end step, like Quest for Renewal or Virtue of Loyalty.
Yeah.
Virtue of Loyalty at least gives you an Anthem effect, so on your end step, you untap all of your creatures and put counters on all of them. Perfect in a token strategy and very scary when you can turn those tokens into value.
Yeah.
All right. That is the Jetmir list. That's the Baylen list. You can check out that full deck list on our ARCHIDEKT. Again, the link is in the description if you want to just go straight to Card Kingdom and pick it up.
I might build a Baylen deck. I've always looked at Baylen with
Balen's
intrigue.
busted.
Drawing so many cards.
Both of those cards are
Naya,
terrifying.
too. Yeah.
Like, if you see Jetmir in the command zone, you're like, okay.
Well, if you see Naya and it's tokens, it's like, well, if Jetmir's not there, he's probably somewhere else.
That's true. I've got a secret Jetmir in my Naya token.
It's funny because we were playing another game the other day and Josh was playing a 5-color deck and it was a token deck. And then at some point, someone was like, oh yeah, Jetmir's in there. And then my heart sank.
You're like,
I was ready to deal with everything, but I forgot that they're 5-color and Jetmir is 100% a win con.
Definitely. It's a very scary Anthem effect, and having it face up in the command zone, your opponents just have to be like, where's my removal?
Where's my removal? I gotta save it.
it.
Yeah. You'll get planned against. All right.
We've got 2 more token deck lists that we're going to talk about today. 2 more of the most powerful token commanders of all time. We're going to tell you exactly how to build them after a few words from our sponsors. Come, Mardu Raiders, and heed the voice of victory! Summer is a time to get out into the world and mobilize! But a pair of attacking warriors won't just kill your opponents, they'll also kill the vibe! So instead, I always bring a pair of everyday earbuds from RAYCON! They're the perfect summer sidekick while I slice things off my to-do list, whether I'm blasting bangers at the gym or skewering meat for the grill while playing podcasts. And RAYCON's latest model is better than ever with 32 hours of battery life, multi-point connectivity, and even a lightning-fast quick charge function. These earbuds also come with active noise cancellation, so you don't need to be bothered by chatter or counter spells when it's your turn to rest and relax. Plus, RAYCONs are aggressively costed, starting at just half the price of other premium brands. They even come in the 2 colors I pair best with, red and black. So if you seek victory this summer, pair up with RAYCON, because while winning is fun, having fun is also winning!
Go to buyraycon.com/command to get 15% off RAYCON's best-selling everyday earbuds. Right now, RAYCON is offering 15% off their best-selling everyday earbuds only at buyraycon.com/command. Again, that's buyraycon.com/command.
All right, Josh, I'm calling you out.
Well, it's about time, Jimmy. Pistols at dawn.
No, what? No, about what you said about Factor.
Wait, did I use it, like it, and it saved me a bunch of money?
That you have an entire spreadsheet of all your personal reviews of Factor meals? No, you're making that up.
I'm the king of spreadsheets. Why would you not believe that? You know what? To prove it, I will put a link in the show notes to my spreadsheet so everybody out there can see it.
Oh, snap.
Seriously, Factor meals are amazing, and they've helped me lose over 20 pounds recently. Before Factor, fast food and delivery was just kind of my quickest thing to fit into my schedule, but now I get chef-crafted meals sent right to my door, and they're ready in less than 5 minutes. It just makes eating healthy so much easier. Factor has options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, Keto, basically whatever strategy you want. You get to choose from over 45 meals every week, and hey, if you want some recommendations, check out my spreadsheet. My personal favorite right now is the Indian-style butter chicken, but there are a ton of dishes right now I think are great.
Dang, well, I stand corrected.
That will teach you to ever doubt my ability to optimize, Jimmy.
Get started at factormeals.com/command50off and use code command50off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box.
That's code command50off at factormeals.com/command50off for 50% off plus free shipping. Again, factormeals.com/command50off.
Bruce and Silas, Vice Cops. This episode, Protect and Infect.
All right, Bruce, we got a brand new case. Are you ready to...
Is it bad?
Bruce, you look awful. Is that Phyrexian oil? You need to see a doctor.
That sounds hard. What if it goes away on its own?
No excuses, Bruce. I'm making you an appointment right now on ZOCDOC. ZOCDOC is a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality in-network doctors and click to instantly book an appointment.
Instantly? That's so fast.
ZOCDOC is all about fast. Visits typically happen within a few days of booking, and you can even score same-day appointments.
But how do I make sure the doctor's good? My last one seemed kinda weird. So, what's the matter, Doc?
You seem completely fine to me.
Creepy.
Well, with ZOCDOC, you never have to settle. They have more than 100,000 doctors across every specialty. You can filter however you like and check ratings from verified patients.
Great. Let's look for same day, though, because my arm, it's mostly metal now.
Stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/command to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/command. Again, ZocDoc.com/command.
Browsing for some new tech?
Yeah, I'm building T-Mount and ARCHIDEKT. Ooh, how about Zergo and Ojutai?
Did you just drag and drop that card image directly into your deck?
Yep, with ARCHIDEKT, you can drag and drop card images from EDH, Rec, or Scryfall directly into the deck list. No typing required.
That is so cool.
Ooh, okay, check this out. I'm gonna drag and drop Dragon Storm into the deck, and then boom, I'm gonna drop a bunch of dragons on the battlefield.
A 9-drop, huh? Seems ambitious.
It was just for the pun. ARCHIDEKT is the best place to browse, brew, and playtest commander decks. Just go to archidekt.com/commandzone to get started.
That's ARCHIDEKT.com/command-zone.
Welcome back, everybody. We are talking about the best token commanders of all time, and it is time
That's
to
what we're
move
doing?
on. Yeah,
Oh, shoot.
the best ones and how to
Yeah.
build them.
This one's fun. We're
one's-
now in a totally different color combination, by the way.
I tried to mix it up.
There's not a single green pip in this commander. Can you guess who it is? It's from Warhammer 40K.
Marneus Calgar.
Sorry, Warhammer 40,000. If any Warhammer reps are listening, because that's how you're supposed to say it for them. We're far enough away from that now, right? Okay, Marneus Calgar. Yeah, this is Esper. 2 white, blue, black for a 3/5 Astartes warrior with double strike. And it has 2 abilities. The first one is whenever 1 or more tokens enter the battlefield under your control, draw a card.
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
We'll
1
take it.
or more, love that. And it's not once per turn. And then it's also got a second ability for 6 mana. You can create 2/2/2 white Astartes warrior creature tokens with vigilance. So 6 mana for 4 power on the board. Not a great rate, but in a pinch, I've seen people use this because they had nothing else to do.
Yeah. I mean, look, make infinite mana, make infinite Astartes. That's not what we're doing.
Yeah.
So this is a token deck that weaponizes tokens to draw cards and then drawing cards to make more tokens.
Oh, so that when it happens again?
This is closer to a Chatterfang build because you're trying to get Marneus down on the battlefield first and then make tokens after. But it's interesting because Marneus doesn't, well, I guess like Chatterfang, he doesn't distinguish between creature and non-creature tokens.
Yeah.
So this deck sort of does a mixture of both.
Cool.
And instead of making a lot of tokens with one big spell like we were doing with Jetmir, we're trying to make tokens with like a lot of little triggers because that means we'll draw more cards off of Marneus.
Yeah, so a card that I'm featured on the art of is Monologue Tax. It's not actually me. 2 and a white, enchantment. Whenever an opponent casts their second spell each turn, you create a treasure token. Hey, there you go. So now we're squeezing value out of treasure tokens.
Yeah, you definitely want a lot of ramp in this deck because you want to get Marneus down as fast as possible.
5-mana commander.
And then something like Monologue Tax that is pretty guaranteed to draw on, like 2 of your 3 opponents' turns.
Yeah, definitely one.
I think you can consistently get a token off of it. So you can play Marneus a turn earlier, but also you can draw cards once Marneus is on the battlefield.
Dig that.
You definitely want tokens that are triggering, that are being made on your opponent's turns. More than once per turn is incredible, but you definitely don't want to be paying mana for it because your commander is expensive. You want to set up a token engine, get Marneus on the battlefield, and then benefit as soon as Marneus hits the battlefield.
Yeah.
So something like a Fairy Artisans is perfect.
This card, by the way, is constantly going up in my book in terms of value.
It's so good. I mean, it's 3 and a blue for a 2/2 flying Fairy Artificer. It says whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. Then exile all other tokens created with Fairy Artisans. So you make a token every time your opponents play a non-token creature.
Yeah, if you get all the ETBs of it as well.
If they cast a Living Death, and your Fairy Artisans enters, you get tokens of everything. You only keep one
at a time,
but you get all of the ETBs, all of the leave the battlefield triggers. But more importantly, you can play Fairy Artisans on turn 3 after you've played a Signet, follow it up with Marneus Calgar, and then you're going to be drawing any time your opponents get a non-token creature into play.
Yeah, and the extra value of those ETBs. A lot of times people just it warps the game because people decide not to play certain things so that you don't get the ETB as well, or it completely blanks what their ETB was trying to do. So not only that, it also just sort of changes the game. And I think Marneus Calgar needs the game to go a little long to win because you're accruing slow value over the course of the game, right? So I do like effects like that as well. Next up, we have Curse of Disturbance. Now, the curse is generally not too playable. There's a couple of them that are nice, but I do like this one a bit. It's 2 and a black for an enchantment or a curse. Enchant player. Whenever an enchantment player is attacked, you create a 2/2 black zombie creature token, and each opponent attacking that player does the same. So other players are going to get 2/2s when they attack your opponent. We all play Curse of Opulence in the office. That's the red one that gets treasures. But this is nice because you also just get more token creatures.
This is an interesting one. I'm not sure exactly where I would put Curse of Disturbance. You can put it on yourself. So it says, look, if you want to attack me, I am going to get a token and draw a card. You'll get a token too, but I'll be drawing cards and have a 3/5 double striker, hypothetically. Or you could put it on an opponent that you think will be easiest to attack, so you can trigger it on your turn, and your opponents are incentivized to do so as well. But it is an interesting tug and pull if you're playing against the Marneus Calgar deck to be like, okay, I don't really want a zombie token that badly, and if I give you a zombie token, you draw a card. So I sort of like it enchanting yourself the most.
That's
because
pretty
then it
disturbing,
acts as a ghostly prison type effect that can defend your life total while you're sort of doing your slow thing.
Because they don't want to give you your cards.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I also usually find that there's usually one deck around the table that really would love those tokens. So finding the right person to put it on is always a fun little mini game.
That's the fun thing with curses.
Yeah.
Up next, you're definitely looking for things that make tokens when you draw. The best one in the deck by far is Nadir Kraken. This is 1 blue
cracked.
For a 2/3 Kraken. It says whenever you draw a card, you may pay 1. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on Nadir Kraken and create a 1/1 blue tentacle creature token, which causes you to draw a card, which allows you to pay 1 to make a tentacle, which causes you to draw a card. So you can have turns where you untap with both Nadir Kraken and your commander and just be like, I'm just gonna pay 1/1/1/1/1/1.
And draw
I'm gonna draw 6 cards. I'm gonna make six tentacles. I'm gonna put 6 counters on my Nadir Kraken, and you guys do have to answer this board.
Yeah. And once you do, I've got 6 cards to just shoot with this whole thing. Suckers.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. I didn't even think about Nadir Kraken in this deck, but I love that.
Another one that will just make you a ton of tokens in quick succession, will draw you a lot of cards, is Amphibian Downpour.
Oh yeah, this is really fascinating, huh?
It's really funny in this deck.
Yeah, because it's got Storm on it, right? And it's going to token copies of itself.
Yeah, it's whenever a token enters the battlefield.
Wow.
So it counts the Storm tokens.
Yeah, that's really sweet. Because you would think, you're turning them into frogs? No. The creatures become frogs. It's the token copies of
auras.
This enchantment.
So it's 2 and a blue for a flash enchantment with Storm. And it says, enchanted creature loses all abilities and is a blue frog creature token with base power and toughness 1/1. So this is a disruption spell that can blank your opponent opponent's creatures, but can
commander.
also make you a ton of tokens entering the battlefield. And because they're being made off of Storm, they're made one at a time.
Ooh.
So you draw off of each one
Let's
when it
go.
enters the battlefield.
And I think you're okay if this is Storm count 3. Even.
Yeah. And you can play it on your opponent's turns. If they have a big turn, you're like, okay, I'll blank this, that. I'm going to draw 3 cards.
Yeah.
And
3 commanders just went bye-bye or whatever.
4 cards.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. I think this is great in the deck. You really are looking for a specific moment to deploy it, but it's going to do some serious damage when it does.
Yeah, this is one of those cards where I was like, wait a second, why is this here? I'm going to let Rachel talk about it, and then the click happened in my brain, and it was all amazing. This next one's a fun one.
I'm thinking about this now, and I wonder if you deck yourself. It's Homunculus Horde.
Yeah.
3 and a blue for a 2/2 Homunculus. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a token that's a copy of this creature.
What do you mean deck yourself? You're just going to have one Homunculus. Oh, wait. It makes a copy.
So you draw your second card, you make a copy, you draw an additional card after that. That doesn't trigger it anymore. It only draws on your second card. But if you have like 4 of these.
Yeah. Every time you draw your second card.
You draw your second card, you make
4 more.
Well, they all trigger individually.
Right.
It's your second card. You make 4 tokens.
Yep.
And they all trigger individually. Like, I make a copy of myself. I make a copy of myself. I make a
copy of myself.
So you draw 4 times. Individually.
Yeah.
And then the next time, like, you're drawing a lot. Like,
yeah.
the next time it triggers, you're going to have, you draw 8.
It has to be board wipe to kill all the Homunculus hordes.
Yeah, it's a race between whether you deck yourself or whether you kill them with Homunculus hordes.
Oh yeah, because they're just I was gonna say they're very good to swing in at people with.
Right, yeah.
Because they can easily chump block them or just kill them with blocks. That's really funny. It's a bit of a dream scenario, and it takes a little bit to go because the new Homunculus hordes you've already drawn your second card that turn, so they're not gonna like re-trigger. But this can definitely get out of hand.
You draw a whole lot off of your commander is the thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the horde has arrived.
So yeah, I mean, it's pretty sweet. There's definitely like board states where you can draw a dozen cards in this deck. Like we're saying, all of this is possible if you have your 5-mana commander in play. So he is certainly a high value target for your opponents to kill. So we were like, okay, how do we want to protect this commander? Because you could lean into counter spells, you could lean into like board protection spells, but you're not really worried about keeping your tokens around all that much. So what we talked about was actually adding a small blink package.
Ooh.
Because there's a lot of great token creatures in black and white that have ETBs that make a lot of tokens, and there's a lot of good just value creatures that can draw you additional cards.
Yeah.
Plus, there's efficient blink spells that can protect your commander from removal.
I love that. This first one is an all-star in the Nico Eris deck.
This card's busted.
Yeah, it's Disorder in the Court. Turns out Magic the Gathering has courtrooms. Oh my gosh. Oh yeah, we all knew that. X white and a blue.
Azorius.
Yeah, Azorius, yeah. X white blue for an instant. Exile X target creatures, then investigate X times. Return the exile cards to the battlefield tapped under their owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So you could just pay 1 for this to get your commander out of the way. Or you can do this for a bunch of the cards we'll talk about in a second here, and then get also a bunch of clue tokens, which will trigger your commander if you're not using it on your commander. I dig that.
Plus, it says investigate X times, which I think puts 3 or 4 X investigate triggers on the stack.
Because each investigates one at a time. Whoa.
They resolve individually, and then you draw a card for each clue you make, plus clues draw cards. That's pretty bananas.
Yeah. I love that. And then, this is white. You've got Ephemerate, you've got Cloud Shift, just cards that just blink your things in and out. I do like that because, again, you don't have the green spells so much to give your commander hexproof or all that. There's a couple of them in blue that do it, but blue likes to phase out or just get things out of the way. So there's other ways of going about it, but I do like the blink package.
Yeah. Plus, there's some really cool creatures that you can blink that make tokens when they enter the battlefield. I'm a huge fan of Chittering Witch. It's 3 and a black. When it enters, create a number of 1/1 black rat creature tokens equal to the number of opponents you control. And then it says 1 and a black, sacrifice a creature. Target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn.
Yeah, low sack outlet too. Love
yeah,
that.
and you blink it, you make more rats, you have more disruption that you can throw around the board. There's a lot of problem like 2/1s. I think this removal gets better and better all the time. This can kill fairy masterminds.
Yeah,
This can
as the game gets faster and slow, and the creatures are still small.
Yeah, it it can pick off a lot of little problem creatures.
Yeah, Sling Gang Lieutenant is also a similar version. It comes in and makes 2 red goblins, and then you can sack a goblin to do the aristocrats thing to make them lose a life and gain a life. You're probably not going to use the sack part as much, but it's just a way to, again, build a really quick board state and draw off your commander.
I probably use the sack part. Like, draining your opponents for 2 or blinking it, draining them for 4 is like,
yeah. I mean, especially, like we'll talk about, but draining, if that's another way for you to close out the game, which is because you have white and black in this commander, so you can lean into the aristocrats part more.
Another one that's sneaky great in this deck is Bill the Pony.
Just outright great.
Busted.
I love this card.
3 and a white for a legendary horse. It's a 1/4 that when it enters the battlefield, you make 2 food tokens.
Yummy.
Then it says sacrifice a food until end of turn. Target creature you control assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power.
Hey, Marneus.
Marneus looking a little thicker than usual.
3/5.
Yeah.
Now, what if Marneus mounts Bill? I don't know if Bill's big and
I don't know if he's ready for that.
With the full Astartes warrior outfit on.
Bill's like, you
armor.
can go, you can walk, I think. But he makes a couple of food, gives you 2 big attacks, and that threat of activation is huge.
Yeah,
where you're just like, I can eat that thing for free.
Yeah, I do love that.
So Bill's pretty fun in the deck.
Yeah. Okay, so how are we going to win the game?
So this is a very interesting deck. It kind of pulls you in a couple of different directions. It's definitely a value token deck that is trying to squeeze the juice out of every single token it makes. So it is trying to just drown your opponents in card advantage and
juice.
in general value. Yeah. Hit them with the juice.
Yeah.
For sure.
Drown them in the juice.
Drown them in the juice.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I do think that you want some amount of drain effects in this deck. You again, like you said, we're in black. We make a lot of tokens. Leaning into the Mirkwood Bats of it all, will likely close a game eventually. I really like Cabal Profiteering Mayor.
Yeah, so this is a really powerful effect because it cares about tokens entering to drain. And then also, if a token enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, for each of those tokens, you create a single tapped token that's a copy of it only once per turn. So that's pretty sweet.
It also gives you a token every turn for you to draw cards off your commander, and it's a drain effect on ETB. Because this isn't a focused aristocrat deck, it is more about, like, it has some amount of that, and it's trying to use like treasures and clues to drain the table out, but having it trigger when the token's ETB is a big deal.
Yeah.
We do want a couple of sack outlets. Again, we said we were trying to squeeze all the juice from every single token that we play.
Yummy, yummy juice.
So running a couple of more flexible or more powerful sack outlets is going to go a long way. One of them that I immediately put in this deck was Fanatical Devotion.
Yeah, an oldie but a goodie. It's just 2 and a white enchantment. You sack a creature to regenerate target creature. So it's another protection for your commander as well.
It's protection for your commander. It's a free sack outlet. We know we need to make sure that Marneus stays on the battlefield. Fanatical Devotion will help with that.
Yep. Hardened Tactician's one from Tarkir Dragonstorm that's really good. You pay 1 to sack a token to just draw a card.
It's great.
Super good, yeah.
Half the activations on your clue tokens turns all the little goblins and rats and crap that you're making into cards. Goes
rat juice.
Yum. Finally, Woe Strider. Woe Strider is a sack outlet that comes in with a token, so it draws you a card right away, and then you can sacrifice creatures to scry 1, and it even has escape in case you need a sack outlet in a pinch.
Yeah, I was going to say another interesting question that players can always ask themselves if budget's not so much of a concern is whether or not a deck wants Ashnod's Altar versus a Phyrexian Altar. And I think this deck probably wants more on the Ashnod side to add just color because you have a bunch of 4-drops that cost 3 in a thing, right?
There's a lot of clue stuff going on as well, so being able to sacrifice creatures to pay for clues to draw more cards is going to be really good.
Yeah, you want that 2 colorless as opposed to 1 color.
This is a really interesting deck because you can kind of take it in whatever direction that you want. You just want to make sure that you're making a lot of tokens one at a time.
Yeah.
So paying attention to how your tokens enter the battlefield and not just playing like a Secure the Wastes, which is only going to draw you 1 card, is how you maximize Marneus. And there's a lot of ways to just like make 1 treasure token incidentally on your opponent's turns. So Marneus will draw you a ton of cards and you can turn cards into a game win. It's a little bit more controlling than the other ones that we mentioned and a lot more flexible.
Yeah, there's also that Lothos guy.
Yeah, Lotho's great in the deck. That's in the deck list that you can find on ARCHIDEKT if you want to build Marneus. Again, we stuck to like a $200 budget, which is not a tight budget. We wanted to make sure that you had a very powerful deck with a functioning mana base, but didn't want to break the bank, obviously.
I
200 's like a
100%
lot.
would buy a Rachel Weeks precon for $200.
Well, now you can.
Now you can.
As long as you want to build tokens.
Yeah. Well, it turns out there's like about like maybe 50 other decks of yours on our ARCHIDEKT. So make sure you just check out our ARCHIDEKT. It's pretty great.
All right, we've got one final token commander that we want to talk about today, and this one's a very different kind of token strategy. It's in blue, it's in red,
Whoa,
it's Brudiclad.
Telchor Engineer. So this is 4 a blue and a red. We just took the mana cost and just kept going up with this one. It's a 4/4. It says creature tokens you control have haste, and at the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 2/1 blue mirror artifact creature token. Then you may choose a token you control. If you do, each other token you control becomes a copy of that token. So your tokens have haste. Every single combat on your turn, you make a 2/1 blue mirror, little dude. And then if you have a token, you can choose to make all of your tokens a copy of that one. So it could become that 2/1, obviously, but it could also become a whole number of other weird things, like treasures.
Oh yeah, Brudiclad can do some ridiculous things. It's an incredibly fun deck to pilot. This one is a little bit of a different strategy because it does want to make a lot of tokens and hang on to them, but it also wants to make one very special token
That all become copies
all the
of.
tokens can become copies of. So it's capable of making a dozen really good somethings. Copies of your opponent's creatures, copies of your own artifacts, copies of constructs, and you can win out of nowhere. There's a lot of weird things that Brudiclad can do. And it's going to win with combat damage a lot of the time.
Yeah. So obviously this is definitely more of a combo style deck.
Yeah.
Now, of course, you could say the combo with like Jetmir is just play Jetmir and win.
Yeah.
But combo in terms of you have weird, tricky things you can do and a lot of different ways to build and pilot it.
Yeah. Brudiclad's really neat. It is closer on the Jetmir side of things because you want to make a ton of tokens and then play Brudiclad after.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the strategy that we leaned into with this deck list. Starting with the fact that it's an artifact deck. Artifact decks are busted.
They always have been. They have fast mana. They have access to so many powerful cards in Magic's history.
And artifact synergy is really, really strong.
Yeah, especially when you're reducing mana costs, all of a sudden you're playing a bunch of, because you're in blue-red, your ramp's not great, but just playing your artifact reduction reducers in terms of the cost can give you those huge stormy spells.
Especially when you have a 6-mana artifact commander.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so the first things first, we mentioned we want to make a lot of tokens so that when we make one special token, we can have a whole bunch of them.
Yay.
One of my favorite ways to make a lot of tokens, especially lately, is Noble's Purse.
Yeah, who doesn't love a little bit of money? There's the 2 mana, enters the battlefield tapped with 3 coin counters on it. You can just tap it to remove a coin counter and make a treasure token. So 3 treasures for the price of 2 mana over 4 turns.
You can use this for ramp. This also makes a ton of artifacts, so it makes your constructs really big. There's a lot of different things that you can do with Noble's Purse. It also just says, I made a token, now I can draw a card of my Idol of Oblivion, that kind of thing. Something similar that I'm actually really excited to see in this deck is Detective's Satchel.
Yeah, let's keep the bag theme going.
I know, just bags. Brudiclad bags.
And bags, yeah.
It's 2 blue and a red for an artifact. When it enters the battlefield, investigate twice. Then it says tap, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter creature token with flying. Activate only if you've sacrificed an artifact this turn.
That's nice.
Good with treasures, good with the clues that it makes itself, and Thopter is a great token to turn all your stuff into.
Yeah, especially if you way to buff them.
I like
How
that
about
one.
Asinine Antics?
This one's sweet.
Yeah, 2 blue from Wilds of Eldraine. It's a sorcery. You may cast it as though it had flash if you pay 2 more to cast it, so this could be a 6-mana spell. And it says, for each creature your opponents control, create a cursed roll token attached to that creature. So they make all of them 1/1s.
Makes all of them 1/1s, but you also make a token for every single creature your opponents control.
Wow.
So eventually, when you turn them all into a copy of something, or
they come back to your board?
Yeah, they don't stay attached to them. They're still yours.
All right, this turn I'm going to make them all constructs. And everyone's like, I got my 5/5 back.
And you're
got
like,
20, 30/30s.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, no.
I think that's such a funny card to be able to put in here.
Yeah, that's a Rachel Week special right there.
But up next, we promised cool fancy tokens. How are we going to make them?
I do love a good, cool, fancy token. So this is a new one from Final Fantasy. It's really good. It's Realms Sketching. 2 blue sorcery, create a token that's a copy of target, artifact, creature, or land.
Gross.
What?
Cool.
That's really sweet. That's really flexible, and you can make a cool token that you can now copy. Either it's something scary on your opponent's board or something that you already have to give yourself low redundancy.
Vizier of Many Faces does a similar thing, especially if you embalm it and it's a token. You may have it enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except if it was embalmed. The token has no mana cost, it's white, and is a zombie in addition to those other types.
Yeah.
You just copy a creature, and you get a token of it.
Yep. Nexus of Becoming. This card is just a straight win con in a lot of decks.
Awesome.
6 mana at the beginning of combat, you draw a card, then you can exile an artifact or creature, and then you create a token that's a copy of it, but it's a 3/3 golem artifact.
Perfect.
Perfect.
That's the great thing to turn your board into.
Yeah, get the ETB and all that good stuff.
And you get a little bit of looting. It's also a really funny thing to turn your entire board into. You draw like 6 cards, you discard a whole bunch, you make a bunch more golems. Cool.
Let's talk about constructs. These are, I think, the most powerful tokens you can do outside of the fact they don't have flying, but they're just going to often be 12 plus. And even just a couple of these hitting someone is enough to close out the game really quickly.
So this first card that we're going to talk about is most of the budget for the deck.
It's really expensive.
It's so expensive, but it's so good in this deck that I really think it is worth buying. Simulacrum Synthesizer.
Yeah.
It's when it enters the battlefield, scry 2. Whenever another artifact with mana value 3 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, you make a construct. So it comes in, it scries. This is a great thing to make your tokens into. If you have a bunch of token simulacrum synthesizers, you play one thing, you make a ton of tokens, and you turn them all into constructs. You have twice as many things. You can do some ridiculous things if you can hang on to Brudiclad for a turn or 2.
Yeah.
2, yuck. But this is exactly how you're going to close out the game, is with these huge, terrifying tokens.
Yeah, it's a robot with a really cool hat. That's what I see.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
You're right.
And then you have Karn, Scion of Urza. This is a 4 mana planeswalker, and you can make a construct for -2, and that's pretty much what you want to do with it every single time. It's just a 4 mana make a construct.
Yep. I think you're always going to make a construct the first time it comes down. It's just really important to have that one really special token. And then if Karn survives long enough, you can start using it as a draw engine. But mostly you're going to be making constructs here.
Would you play Wonder in this deck to make your constructs flying?
Maybe. I think there's like other artifact creature synergy cards that I probably play first.
Like Cyberdrive Awakener.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But getting the constructs off the ground is nice. I think the plan is just to make too many.
Lift off. All
right.
Let's talk about the late game, because Brudiclad kind of is late game.
He is the late game. You won't cast him until you have a board of tokens and that one all-important powerful token to turn your entire board into. So once you have that set up, Brudiclad can come down. Again, this is pretty telegraphed, so you want to make sure that you have
redundancy too.
And
something, protection, something.
People see Brudiclad, they know what's going to happen. They have to be aware of you. If you can pull it off, it's going to be bonkers, but your opponents are incentivized to stop you. So I did want to talk about some alternate routes to how you can close the game if Brudiclad is too expensive, or if you haven't been able to really put together that bulk of tokens that you need.
Yeah.
There is a Thopter sub-theme.
Yeah, flyers in the air. Turns out they can kill you.
This is one of my favorite tokens of all time, is Thopters. They're really fun to make. They're great with artifacts, energies, and flying is still just good. Retrofitter Foundry is sort of the most iconic Thopter deck card, in my opinion. This can pay 2, tap it, and make a servo. Then you can sack a servo, tap it, and make a Thopter, and pay nothing and tap it, sacrificing the Thopter to make a construct. Not a
4/4.
construct. Just a 4/4 construct.
Yeah, and you can also pay 3 to untap it. This only costs 1 to cast. This is one of those things where it doesn't look so scary, it doesn't look so bad, and then late game you're like, oh my goodness, that player has just used that 6 times. They've made so many things out of it. They keep pumping mana into it, and all of a sudden it looked like they had nothing, but now they have everything. It's really good to be sneaky on blocks and stuff too. It's really
I'm
powerful.
going to block with my servo, sack the servo, make a Thopter, and it was a free chump.
Yeah, exactly. Or they didn't see a 4/4 coming out of nowhere at them, right?
Retrofitter Foundry is a ton of fun to play with if you haven't gotten the chance, and it's really good to combine with things that just naturally make Thopters, because you can turn them into constructs at any time. So like Master Thopterist is a great option. Whenever you cast an artifact, you make a Thopter, but also it says 1 in a blue, sack 2 artifacts to draw a card. So you can sacrifice your board in a pinch and try and get out of a bad spot.
Yeah, getting some card draw in blue-red's always powerful. Like Thopter Spy Network, at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control an artifact, you make a Thopter, and then whenever one more artifact creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, draw a card.
This is a good one. Thopter, again, is a great token to just have on board, and Thopter Spy Network doesn't tend to attract a ton of attention.
Yep.
So use those Thopters, use those flyers, peck in, draw some more cards, and set up for that big Brudiclad turn.
Okay, there are some other fun little win cons here. The first one is just a cool equipment. It's Nettle Cyst. It's got living weapon, so it comes in with a 0/0 germ creature token. Don't turn your
turn
things
all your
into
board.
into
Yeah,
germs, baby.
combo. They all die.
Maybe you have some dice triggers or something. But it gives an equipped creature +1/+1 for each artifact and or enchantment you control. This is often +8, +9, and you can equip the Nettle Cyst for 2.
This is a great threat that just sticks around on the board and can absolutely kill someone. If you're into alternate win cons, this is a great mechanized production deck.
Yep.
This is an aura that says enchant artifact you control. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a token that's a copy of the enchanted artifact. Then, if you control 8 or more artifacts with the same name as one another, you win the game.
Whoa, so it doesn't actually have to be the artifact you enchant. That's the thing that people often miss. It can be a different artifact. If you just have 8 treasures and you mechanize production on another artifact, yeah, it still works.
It's also a good way to make fancy tokens that you want to turn your entire board into.
Right.
I had a very fun turn when I was goldfishing where I was like, okay, I'm going to turn my entire board into mana rocks. Then I'm going to cast this super powerful thing. Then I'm going to untap with 1,000,000 mana, cast the thing that made a construct, and then turn all my mana rocks into constructs.
That's pretty
And
sick.
you're like, come on. Brudiclad.
Yeah,
it's
Brudiclad.
too fun.
Yeah, there's so many different ways to build Brudiclad. I think one of the things that you have to be aware of when playing Brudiclad is just knowing, okay, that's the line they're going for, and you should be able to see it before Brudiclad's out, so at least you know of the things that are on the board, that's the one that is posing as the biggest threat.
Mm-hmm. Have a plan. And again, check out that full deck list in our ARCHIDEKT. The link is in the description. Brudiclad was one of the first decks I owned.
No way.
I built the Command Zone Precon upgrade, and that was one of my first decks.
Yeah. Should we go back and watch that episode?
Yeah, let's see how good it was.
All right, so that's 4 deck lists in ARCHIDEKT for everyone to check out. Make sure you do so. Rachel put a lot of time and effort into these, and again, she's one of the best deck builders in the world.
Yeah, we built some fun ones for you. Hopefully, you can just drive these deck lists off the lot and have the perfect deck list to get you playing. If you've always wanted to try tokens, these are great places to start. But if none of those commanders scratch the itch you were looking for, I did want to just mention a couple other great token commanders that you could take a look at. I don't have full deck lists for them. Sorry, I didn't build 10 decks for this episode, just 4.
How dare you.
But I wanted to talk about them in terms of what they do for tokens.
Yeah.
So the first category is enablers, of course. These are often commanders that just make tokens.
Yeah, Caesar, Legion's Emperor, is from Fallout. This is the Mardu commander. Whenever you attack, you can sack a creature, and then you can just choose 2 abilities. Draw a card, lose a life, or Caesar deals damage equal to a target equal to the number of creature tokens you control to an opponent, or you make 2 1/1 red white soldier creature tokens with haste that are tapped and attacking.
Caesar does it all, really. Caesar makes tokens, so he is an enabler. He's also a payoff because he deals the damage and draws you cards. So he's one of the more powerful token commanders that is available because he's just sort of good at every point in the game.
Yeah, and doesn't have to attack itself, notably.
The other one I wanted to mention, because I don't see this commander built enough, is Faramir, Prince of Ithilien.
That's quite sweet.
2 white blue for a 3/3 human noble. At the beginning of your end step, choose an opponent. At the beginning of that player's next end step, you draw a card if they didn't attack you this turn. Otherwise, create 3 1/1 white human soldier creature tokens.
Wow.
So 3's a lot for a 4-mana thing. So if you can defend yourself with this, you can play a little bit of politics, you can draw extra cards. I think Faramir's neat.
Or just put out 3 1/1s. And there's always going to be some fun situation with the table, sort of what's going on out there. All right, the next category of other great token commanders are token commanders that are just payoffs. So this first one is like the most aggro token commander you can come up with. It's Arabella, Abandoned Doll, a red-white 1/3 artifact creature toy. Whenever Arabella attacks, it deals X damage to each opponent, and you gain X life, where X is the number of creatures you control with power 2 or less.
Pretty scary.
Yeah, so it doesn't actually have to be tokens necessarily, but tokens obviously are really easy to get a bunch out.
It's a good way to go super wide.
Yeah, and Arabella is just 2 mana as a commander, so she could be doing a lot of damage really quickly.
I think one of the most iconic token payoff commanders of all time is Slimefoot the Stowaway. Specifically, Saprolings. It's whenever a Saproling you control dies, Slimefoot deals 1 damage to each opponent and you gain 1 life. Then 4: make a 1/1 green Saproling creature token. You can go infinite with that. There's a few ways you can.
Oh, definitely.
But this is more of an aristocrat style one. It says, do you have a lot of Saprolings? Benefit.
Yep. And the last category are enhancers. So this is helping enhance the strategy you already have going. The first up, Adrix and Nev, twin casters, 2 a green and blue for a 2/2 with Ward 2. And it says if one or more tokens to be created under control, twice that many tokens are created instead. Yay, we did it. We finally talked about a doubler.
This is on the list of some of the most popular token commanders. I didn't want to talk about it because it's pretty open-ended. But Adrix and Nev is, of course, very good, especially if you can make really powerful tokens.
Yeah, any tokens too, not just creatures.
Finally, a classic go-wide token commander, Thalise Reverent Medium, says, did you make tokens? Here's some tokens.
Hey, at the beginning of each end step, create
like
X
tokens?
1/1 spirit creature tokens with flying, where X is the number of tokens you create this turn. It could happen in multiple end steps.
You made tokens?
I'm going to make some tokens.
All right. I'll get you some more tokens.
Yeah, I'll make a bunch
and
of
you're like,
1/1s.
Thalise, stop.
Please stop. Wait, what do you mean you're playing
I
Ink
have
Shield,
tokens.
Thalise? No, Ink Shield, no!
Thalise is very fun. This is you can go super wide, super fast, and all of those tokens with flying is a lethal threat.
Yeah. To the listeners.
Yeah,
let's just jump into it. What's your favorite token commander in the world?
Yeah.
And was it one that Rachel built for you today? Is it one that you're going to be taking to your next game night? Is it one you're going to audition for the next game nights?
Ooh.
What's your favorite token tech? That's my favorite question of this. There's a lot of weird little things you can do with tokens, like Wand of the World so sweet.
I love
to give
it.
them Convoke, yeah. So if there's some cool token stuff out there, my favorite token commander is actually Calgar, Wind's Fury.
It's a good one.
Makes a lot of little 1/1s that you can sack for mana.
All right. Let us know in the comments. We always want to hear about it. If you're going to buy any of the decks that I built for this episode, please go to cardkingdom.com/command and you will be supporting the show.
Yeah.
They have a huge selection of cards. Hopefully you can get a ton of them all in one place so you can start playing with this deck list as soon as possible. Card Kingdom is the real pros over there. They know cards. They know exactly the version you're looking for, exactly the condition, and they're going to make sure that the card you ordered on the website is the one that shows up on your doorstep. They package it safely. They put it in a little case. They give you a little sticker. It's a ton of fun.
Yeah.
So support the show. Get some sweet cards. Go to cardkingdom.com/command.
And then protect those cards by going to ultrapro.com/command. You can get all of the brand new stuff that comes out with each set with the licensed official art that only Ultra Pro has access to, whether it's Final Fantasy, you're going to try and pick up some of that stuff, or any of the new sets coming out. Age of Eternities looks really sweet. Or maybe you find something that matches. You found the Mana 8 line with the green playmat and the green deck box, because it's all about that for your token deck. And we love signing that stuff at MagicCon as well. There's so much to find on ultrapro.com/command. Sometimes they just have amazing deals on older products that are trying to move through their inventory. So you can get deck boxes like Rachel did for half off. I've seen sales for 70 to 80% off certain items as well. So make sure you sign up for that newsletter and support the show by going to ultrapro.com/command.
And we got to say thank you to everybody who makes shows like this possible. Thank you to Rachel Kendrick, Karina Cruz, Sebastian Salazar, Gaurav Galati, Jamie Block, Jordan Pridgeon, Jake Boss, Eric Lem, Manson Lung, Josh Murphy, Evan Limburger, Sam Waldo, and of course, Josh Lee
Kwai. You can hear him screaming Brudiclad from somewhere else in the building. All right, everyone, thanks so much for watching.
We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Rachel, for making these decks for us.